She walked back into the city with a silence that carried thunder, the kind that makes even the wealthiest families tremble behind their golden gates. Years ago, they had laughed at her, mocked her skin, crushed her dignity, and threw her out of their empire as if she were nothing but dust under polished shoes. The billionaire family had called her an outsider, unworthy of their son, unworthy of their legacy, unworthy of their blood. They thought humiliation would break her, that pain would silence her, that rejection would erase her from the world. But what they never knew was that betrayal can be the strongest fire and injustice can sharpen the coldest blade. Now she returned not with tears but with power, not with shame but with ownership, and not as a forgotten memory but as the woman who now controlled everything they once believed was untouchable. In the grand halls of a mansion where chandeliers sparkled like captured stars, the family had once celebrated their wealth with pride so loud that no voice could question them. They lived with arrogance, believing money placed them above humanity, and they despised her presence because she was different, because her roots were not born from their bloodline. Their son had loved her, but his love was not enough to shield her from the poison of their cruelty. They called her names whispered in polished corridors, they turned smiles into daggers. They crushed her spirit until she walked away with nothing but scars and silence. Yet while they thought she was erased, she was building, learning, growing into something they could never imagine. In the shadows where no spotlight shined, she created her empire, and every insult, every rejection, became bricks in the fortress of revenge she was preparing to unleash. The years that followed her departure were marked, not by weakness but by transformation. She started small, investing in ideas that others dismissed, building companies where her vision turned failures into fortune. While they laughed at her absence, she grew silently, collecting power piece by piece until her influence stretched across industries they believed only they could dominate. The family remained blind, trapped in their pride, unaware that the woman they had humiliated was now climbing higher than their empire ever had. Each business she touched flourished, each deal she struck pulled her closer to the throne they thought could never be challenged. She became the very storm they had never prepared for. When the moment finally arrived, it was not loud or chaotic. It was quiet, sharp, and devastating. Their empire began to crumble under the weight of her influence. Banks that once worshipped their wealth now listened to her voice. Corporations that once feared their name now bent to her power. And investors they thought loyal shifted to her side. The family could not understand how control was slipping through their hands like sand, but she did not reveal her hand until the moment was perfect. It was at their grand gala, a celebration meant to display their eternal dominance, where she appeared with a calmness that sliced through the crowd. Dressed in elegance they could never dismiss, she walked into the room and watched their faces pale as whispers spread like wildfire. She had returned, but not as the woman they discarded. She had returned as the owner of everything around them. One by one, contracts were unveiled, revealing her stake in their companies, her control over their estates, her authority over their wealth. Their humiliation was no longer private. It unfolded before the very society they had once used to mock her. She stood before them, no words of anger, no cries of pain, just the unshakable truth that everything they had used to destroy her now belonged to her. The suspense that lingered in the room was heavier than silence, for everyone knew a power twist had rewritten the story forever. The family who once believed they were untouchable stood broken, stripped of the pride that had blinded them, their fortune no longer theirs to command. The world that had once clapped for their arrogance now turned to admire the strength of the woman they had tried to erase. She did not seek their approval nor their forgiveness. She had risen beyond the chains of hate they once wrapped around her. In the quiet of that final night, as their empire collapsed under her name, they finally understood the cost of cruelty. She left the hall not with rage but with peace, for revenge had not been in shouting or in shame, it had been in power. in dignity, in reclaiming everything they thought she could never have. Her story became a whisper across the city, a tale of injustice turned into triumph, a reminder that the oppressed can rise to own it all.